Hey, everybody, welcome to Pink Shade. It's Thursday. It's Poppin' Bravo Thursday. And I've got my friend Melissa here from your Bish Therapist. And Melissa, if people don't know where you got the title of your podcast, can you explain? I know, but I'd like you to explain to the people.
Yes, of course. And thank you, Mary Payne, for having me back. I'm so grateful and excited to be here. I love you so much.
Yes.
So my name comes from Miss Amy Phillips,
Hmm.
originally called herself Your Bitch Wife, based on, and I don't know if people remember this was kind of like vintage Real Housewives of New Jersey, back when Teresa and Joe Giudice were married, and they
Hmm.
were at this winery, and Joe was talking to someone on his phone who it seemed like was a mistress, but that was like huge drama. Anyway, so he says to this person on the phone, "Here she comes, my bitch wife."
Yep.
Right.
Hmm.
So Amy Phillips, she loved that. And I mean, I didn't love it for Teresa, but it was just a wild moment of pop culture history. And so I called into Amy Phillips' podcast and I kind of got to know her a little bit. She had asked a question about Lexapro. And as a therapist, I DM'd her and I said, "Amy, please allow me to be your bitch therapist." And
Uh-huh.
she just loved it. And she was like, "Oh my gosh, that's hilarious." And so then eventually she had me on her show when I wasn't even this. I was just a therapist.
Yeah.
And the name was born. And I just changed it to Bish because I didn't think having a curse in the title would help me necessarily.
Right.
So I kind of pivoted on that, but it really does all come from Real Housewives of New Jersey and Amy Phillips, and Your Bish was born.
Was this when she was on Reality Checked, or was this when she started Drama Darling?
This was when she was on Reality Checked. It was at the very end, right before she left.
Yeah.
And
Uh-huh.
so in reality, for me, her leaving Reality Checked and starting her new Drama Darling venture worked really well for me.
Mhm, mhm.
And I love Amy. I love her anyway, whether she's on Sirius or doing her own thing. I think she's fabulous. But yes, this was right at that transition time that Yabish was born.
Okay, I love it. Well, I love Amy. She's a good friend of mine, and I
Yes.
think it's so funny because I do wonder sometimes if people aren't into vintage housewives or they haven't watched every episode of every season like people like us have. They might be like, "I
Right.
wonder what your Bish therapist means." So there, I mean, now we've explained it.
Yeah, I mean, because the name sounds it's so funny. It sounds so opposite to who I am because,
Right.
sure, I can be, sassy and all of these things, but I'm mostly team humanity. I'm such the opposite of a bitch
Yeah.
that it's like it's so funny that that's my moniker, but, I adore Amy. I wouldn't have it any other way, and I'm honored that this is the moniker. This is what we're
It's
going with.
so great.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of bitches, let's talk about some Bravo people in the news, and let's talk about Jill Zarin. All right.
Mm.
So it won't surprise you guys that I don't agree with Jill Zarin in her politics. We don't really talk politics here, but
Mm.
I felt what Jill did. And if you guys don't know, I'll just tell you quickly. After Bad Bunny's halftime show, she went on a rant, and you can find it anywhere. She took it down, but lots of people have it, including me. You She went on a rant about Bad Bunny and the halftime show, said it was anti-American, said she didn't see any white people. She didn't recognize Lady Gaga, who's white. She didn't recognize her because of her facelift. She talked about Ricky Martin having a wig. She said she really just sort of tore the whole thing down, but really her saying she didn't see enough white people and felt that there were subliminal messages and it was anti-American, got her fired from the job she's been trying for 10 years to get. She has been trying for 10 years to get back on TV, and she blew it thinking everybody wants her opinion on the halftime show. She even said, Allie said I shouldn't say all this because I'm going to get canceled, but I have to say it. I'm sorry. And then in the comments, she doubled down. People were like, "You're right, Jill. Fuck the Puerto Ricans." I don't know. And she's like, "That's right." She doubled down in the comments because I read all of it in real time.
Mm.
Then she took it down, and her excuse is, "What can I say? I'm human."
Mm-mm-mm. Mm-mm.
So she got fired. E has announced a new show called The Golden Hour, and it is Ramona, who, let's just be
Ugh.
honest, she's next.
Yeah.
Ramona, Luann, Kelly Ben Simone, Sonia, right? So let me tell
Yes.
you what, here's a prediction right here, right now. I predict Jill's gone. They're going to slide Dorinda in.
That's very interesting that you say that, because I do think Dorinda feels chronically left out. And I mean, speaking of bad behavior, like,
There's a reason she's still on pause. I mean,
well, and let me be honest, if, Bravo, whatever people want to say about Bravo, but Bravo knows who some of these women are. And I think that's why they
yeah,
didn't want this show back on Bravo. I mean, Bravo, it's a community of inclusive people, allies, and, advocates, and all of that. And so I think that Jill's Jill's comments, let me be clear, because I have more people arguing with me about this
ooh,
than other major things that I've said. Like, and I don't necessarily talk a lot of politics either, but as a therapist, therapy is political, right? We have to support and advocate for marginalized groups and cultural competence and all these things. I'd
yeah.
be the worst therapist in the world if I was like, yeah, what Jill's saying is totally right. No, what Jill's saying was
It would be like if you said, "Look, her excuse is she's human, and that's right. We're all human."
no, 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 no.
No,
So here's my thought on this. I actually am uh an ambassador for a brand called I Am Human.
stop. That is so
I'm
funny.
not kidding. Yeah, I'm an ambassador. It's I Am Human. It is a clothing brand. Check it out. IamHuman.com. And this was not meant to be a plug, but I am Team Humanity. And I am here to say that Jill's apology was a non apology. It was one of the worst non apology housewives apologies we've ever seen. And being human doesn't mean that you get to spout off about being racist
Mhm,
and hateful. And America isn't just about white folks, and
mhm,
there's a group of people who, if that's what you think America is, then you are woefully uneducated and misinformed. that's
mhm.
that's what I'll say. And I think that being human means that, yes, we make mistakes and we screw up and we deserve grace. What Jill did wasn't a human mistake. She was outright racist,
Yeah,
doubled down on it in her comments. And then this non apology was a PR move to sort of like, she still won't just say, I was wrong. Right.
right.
Part of being human means when we make a misstep, we have to take accountability and ownership. So if Jill had said something like, I didn't realize what I said was racist, that wasn't my intention, and I have now educated myself
Yeah,
about, the values that other cultures bring. And also, celebrating other cultures doesn't mean that we have to hate or dislike like, we can celebrate other cultures while still appreciating our own. I think that's
sure.
the thing that gets lost in this too. So, no, Jill's not human. She royally screwed up. She is making excuses, and she does not deserve that apology, does not deserve empathy. It tells me that she is surrounded by an echo chamber of people who think just like her,
Mhm,
and she is not open to learning or hearing anything different. And
mhm.
that is a real problem for
Well,
me and
I
a lot
think
of
that you
people.
just in that last sentence, you nailed Jill, not open to learning or anything different, because the behavior that we've seen of her is sort of constantly like, "Well, this is the way it should be, and you're wrong." Like, she goes around hotels and is like, "Hi, I'm at the, Ritz-Carlton of so and so, a five-star hotel, and I gotta tell you, whatever is this scent they've got, it's wrong. They shouldn't have this scent in the hallways. People don't like it." And you're
That's
like,
exactly right. Yep.
"What? What?" So, I
Yet
think that that's always been her way, and it
mhm.
may be endearing and fun if you're, like, kind of her part-time friend and you see her 4 times a year, you may be like, "Oh, she's a lot. She's fun to go on a trip with," and we joke that that's her personality, but I think in real life and I just wanna again, and I wanna get your opinion, what is it like, I had an opinion on the Bad Bunny thing. My opinion is It was interesting. I don't speak Spanish. I know that one song, but I was interested afterwards, just like I was with the Kendrick Lamar last year,
Mhm.
to afterwards find out all the symbolism. Because when they do these
Right.
halftime shows,
Yes.
a lot of it is symbolism. And if you're not like a huge fan, you don't know. So it's cool later to go and see this meant this meant that.
Right.
If Billie Eilish did a halftime show, nobody would have to explain it to me. I would know all the symbolism. But
Right.
with Bad Bunny and Kendrick Lamar, I did not. So I
Mhm.
think it's very interesting. I don't sit in my car and listen to Bad Bunny all day. And again, I don't speak Spanish. I just enjoyed it because I thought it was interesting. But I did not feel the need to put a camera in my face and go on social media and explain that. Because who gives a flying fuck what I think? Like it wasn't for me. Do you know what I mean? It wasn't for me.
Sure, sure.
What
And
is
it
that's what I'm asking. What is the need to go on social media and give your hot take? That's my question.
oh boy. Okay. So
That's a different set of issues, I'm sure.
well, and no, it's such a good question, and I love your comparison to the Kendrick Lamar thing because a lot of white people didn't get that either.
Right.
And I'm just saying, like, as a white person, it's like there were a lot of folks who that was in English, but they were like, I don't understand this. But to your point, it's like if you're a fan of the person, you understand the symbolism. Like, for example, Bad Bunny, the whole electric power thing where they
Yeah,
kind of fell from that was a nod and when Puerto Rico was without power for 6 months
right.
and there was no funding and no one gave a shit. So there was a lot of cultural significance in the songs and what he was saying. And now I think that what makes people feel emboldened to put a camera in front of their face and talk about it is I'm going to be honest, it's narcissism and it's also a really narrow worldview because Jill believes that everybody should think like her, right?
Okay.
And that is just not there's narcissism in that. Like narcissist is the most overused word, like
Yeah,
narcissist, gaslighting, right? It's
yeah,
very overused. But we are talking about narcissistic traits and tendencies, which we all have, by the way, myself included. We all
sure.
have those. I kind of look at it on a scale from, not having a lot of traits and tendencies kind of on the left side and having
And then
more
Jack
traits and
Saylor.
tendencies right, yeah,
Right, okay.
where it crosses over into disorder
Right.
because people can have narcissistic traits and tendencies without having a narcissistic personality disorder or an antisocial personality disorder, but the closer you move over to this right side when it crosses into disorder, right, and that's for the person's therapist or psychologist or psychiatrist to figure out. But Jill is definitely somewhere on that line thinking that I'm going to say this and all people are going to support me. And again, that just tells me not only that there's narcissism, there's also entitlement that she thinks her opinion should matter so much to the world. Like, who cares what Jill thinks, as they said on The View? Like, who cares?
Are we sitting around like, "Oh god, it's over. I can't wait to hear what Jill Zarin has to
R
say about this."
right. Right. Yeah. So it's a mix of narcissism, it's a mix of entitlement, it's a little bit of kind of I'm gonna be honest, a little bit of delusion, because I think it just speaks to who Jill surrounds herself with. She probably, Jill can never hear that she's wrong. She can never hear that she's made a mistake. And so she's not going to be spending time with people who challenge her perspectives or give her different sides of things. They're going to be all people who think just like her.
It's
So she
interesting
just thought,
because her boyfriend in the background, you could hear him going, "Okay, no, uh-uh." You could hear him, like, disagreeing with her, and she said
mhm,
in the comments, "Allie said I'm gonna get canceled."
mhm.
And Zarin Fabrics, which was owned by her former husband, put out a picture of her face with a giant X on it and said,
Yeah.
"We do not support racism, bigotry." The fact that they put a her headshot with an X on it with their statement was wild.
So
Wild.
wild, so wild. But you know what? It's like what I appreciate is that people are we live in a very tenuous situation right now in the United States, and I just love that there's a lot of advocacy for cultural competence and appreciation of cultures that are different than ours. And I also thought it was hilarious. But did you see that the grandson did an Ask Me Anything on Reddit, and oh my
step
gosh.
grandson. So it's
Oh, step
Bobby.
grandson.
Yeah, it's her ex-husband. I mean, not her former husband who died. Bobby's
Right.
it's Bobby's grandson, so her step grandson.
Right. But
Mhm.
I was seated and ready, and I was just like, that is wild. But Zarin Fabrics, it's a business, and by the way, a business in New York, which hello is the melting pot.
Yes. Right.
And it's like, a business, and hopefully they really believe the things that they said, but I totally understand why they were like, do not associate this with us, because they also just don't want that smoke.
It is just it is like Troy Behind the Blinds podcast posted and said, one thing about Jill, she's always going to fumble her bag. And
Yeah.
that's right. One thing about her, just when she's worked for 10 years to get back on TV, she's going to fuck it up. And she has nobody to blame but herself. And I, it's everything about it is sad, but I am see if you agree with me. I am stunned that the next day he fired her. Because people don't get fired over this shit, Melissa. People just don't.
Well, here's the thing. People don't get fired over this shit, maybe other places, but I think E is just, I just think that there's a different generation, running things or having input with things, and it's just I like that it's not being tolerated. I
Me
mean, was I
too.
surprised? Yeah.
Shocked.
Shocked, but am I supportive of it? Absolutely. In my comments on Instagram, people kept saying, FAFO, which is, F
Fuck,
around and find
fuck
out.
around and
Yeah.
find out. Yeah, we say it in this house all the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I love that actions do have consequences. And sometimes we live in a world where it feels like that's not happening.
Right.
And so I think people, myself included, it's like, well, this might be a small win, but we consider it a win because someone somewhere is paying attention and holding someone accountable for something. Okay. It's not going to
Yes.
fix the world, but
Right.
hey, Jill Zarin fumbled her bag. Full agree on that. And she has nobody to blame but herself. Because here's the thing, Ramona is as equally as problematic, let's be real.
Oh yeah.
If not significantly more problematic, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
But she is smart enough to keep her racism quiet. Now, she is smart. Well, and it's not, I mean, I'm being facetious, obviously, because I don't tolerate racism, but even Ramona is going to be like, oh, well, I'm not going to do that. She's learned about what to say and where to say it, I think.
Yeah.
And so, but I am just wondering, I'm like, well, where are people reviewing Ramona's tweets and her stuff on social media and her ridiculous racist rants? Like, where is all that? And for me, I'm just not here for this new reboot. I know that Countess Luann is an advocate and an ally, and Kelly Ben Simone made a statement too, but I'm just like, I don't know. Do we really
Sonia had
need
to immediately post clips of her from the show where it's like, I love all my Latin friends. I'm at it's Gay Tuesday at my house. Within 30 minutes, she had all those clips ready showing how she's, and I was like, who on Sonia's team is pulling those clips? Because how could you even remember that 20 years ago she said, I love all my Latin gays? Like, how could she find that clip so fast? I was like,
I know. But also I think it is hilarious to be like, there was someone else, and the name is escaping me, that was like, oh my gosh. Brandy Glanville tweeted about, she's like, well, I love Bad Bunny and I think he's so hot, but Jill has the right to her opinion. And it's like, are we really trying to say I'm attracted to Puerto Rican men, so therefore it's not racist? Like, is that really what we're trying to do here? But Sonia's thing too, it's like, well, I have friends who are Puerto Rican and all this stuff. And it's like, okay, let me be really clear. We cannot be allies or advocates for a marginalized group if we're voting actively against their rights.
right.
That's just what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
And so having friends who are Puerto Rican or Latin, or finding someone attractive like Bad Bunny, that's not advocacy. That's kind of performative and all of that stuff. But I just think Sonia is, it's Sonia Rita. She's just like, that's her personality.
Right.
I don't think that was intended to be, I don't know what the word I'm looking for. I don't think she
I think
intended that
it's
to be that.
hilarious that she still has an intern that can, at the blink of an eye, pull up a clip from her from 20 years ago,
Right.
incorporating Latin gay culture. It was like, oh God, listen, I go to Puerto Rico twice every year. I love it. You're like, wow, she's got somebody
I
working double time pulling these things.
I know,
And
I'm like, "I
Luann
need
came out
that team."
immediately. I love it. I was like, yes, Luann, always on the right side.
Mhm.
Now,
Yeah.
not always probably, but not when she threatened to murder the cop. But
Oh, yeah.
I still
That was
forget about
bad.
that. So we'll see what happens with this new show. I'm predicting they're going to slide Dorinda in, who also got in some trouble after the Traitors for her behavior towards Ron. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Dorinda has
yeah.
just had real bad behavior for a really long time, and I
So
think
she's
I
not getting back on Bravo. She
right.
will. She is on Radio Andy with Kiki Monique, which I have no clue and no personal knowledge, but I can imagine it's a daily struggle for Kiki. But I have no knowledge of this. I'm just
Right.
projecting. I imagine it would be hard.
Mhm.
So she is on Radio Andy, but she's never been invited back to be on any show on Bravo.
Yeah. Yeah,
No,
I
no
think
funny
that's
Crappy Lake spinoff with Dorinda, nothing. So I don't think she's ever getting back on Bravo. So she better really make sure she keeps her mouth shut because she wants to be back on TV too.
yeah, but Dorinda, it has that same thing as Jill where they just cannot keep their mouths closed. They just think that their voices need to be heard all the time. And again, there's narcissism, entitlement, but also
Yeah.
listen, a desire for attention, which is fair. Like all humans need love and attention and support. We all do that. But I think they need to do that privately and give up the ghost of trying to be beloved by fans. Like maybe do some internal work. Love
Yeah.
yourself
Mhm.
and then get the love and support from the people around you instead of, from
I think
the
Jill loves
fans.
herself a lot. I think she's doing just fine with that.
She does tend to love herself a lot, but sometimes people like that, there are a lot of kernels underneath that of really not feeling good enough. Sometimes it's overcompensating, and sometimes they really do believe that, and then that can be part of a greater issue. That's what
Right,
I'll say.
yeah, Jack Saylor. Okay. And when I say Jax, I mean, he has discussed, he's obviously diagnosed. What did he say? He goes, he was a 9 out of a 10 on the narcissism scale or whatever. And we're
Oh,
like,
did
yes.
he say
Yeah. Oh,
that?
yeah, yeah, yeah. He said that on one
Yeah.
of the Valley after shows in the first season. He goes, yeah, I
Oh,
took that
no.
test and I was like 9 out of 10 on I was like, I don't know I'm surprised you weren't 11 out of 10. Y- You know,
Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't find a new,
I knew.
scoring system for Jax Taylor. Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
so we haven't heard from him in a while. My understanding of that is that allegedly he was in a full, 4-month rehab, which
Yes,
is what
that's
he
also what
needed,
I heard.
which is what he
Yes,
to be
he
away
did.
and
Mhm.
not be able to come home and check his mail
And
during
terrorize Britney and be on
during
camera. Yeah,
during rehab.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Um, okay, that's Jill Zarin. We solved that. Now, let's see if we can solve the Karen Huger interview.
Mm.
Okay, so I watched it. Now, last week I talked to Dylan and Pat at Bad TV about it, but they had not fully seen it. They had only seen clips. I studied it like the Zapruder film because I couldn't get over the new nose. You guys, I know that's not important, but she got that nose job before she went to prison because when they showed her come out and she had the braids and the do-rag and stuff, and she looked real cute and everything, if we're to believe that was not a reenactment, which I can't imagine she went to the courthouse and reenacted that with flash bulbs and stuff. Assuming that was when she actually came out and she gets in the car and they got the GoPros, she had that nose. She had that new nose. Because when I
Right.
just first saw the clips, I was like, new nose, who this? But then when I saw the whole episode with her coming out, I was like, she's already got the new nose. So she got that new nose before she went to prison, which, by the way, kind of smart, gave it time to settle.
That's true. That's accurate. Yeah.
Because other people were like, if she got out in September and this interview is airing in January, she definitely didn't get out of prison, go right to a surgeon and have 2 months to recover and have a nose look like this by the time she's interviewed with Andy. There's just not enough time.
1,000%. Yes, proven by the fact that we've seen some other housewives get work done right before like the season starts, and
Yes.
you can tell, like Vicky Gunvalson, and you can tell
Yeah.
that something's off. Like it does take time. So that is a good breakdown because I asked you before we started filming this. I was like, when did she do it? And but then it's like if you think about that, right? Does not that also inform our perspective about this interview where it's like, so you were going to be on trial, you weren't listening to your lawyers, you were in rehab, and you also found time to get plastic surgery? Like, does that not inform our thinking about what Karen's priorities are? That's wild.
It is wild to me. And, the listeners know here, my husband is a recovering alcoholic. He's 11 years sober. So I am very familiar with the language. Yes,
Mhm.
congratulations to him. I'm very familiar with the language. I'm familiar with rehab. He was in a rehab facility for 90 days in Utah. I'm familiar with the trauma. I'm familiar with what it does to your family. I'm familiar what it
Right.
does to the addict, all of it. Okay.
Mhm.
Personal lived experience is what I'm going from. This I can't imagine that he would, let's just say he came out of rehab and his first thing would be like, I've never felt my teeth are white enough. So I'm going to get veneers. I
Right.
can't imagine it would be on his mind. His whole being is like, I am trying to be sober today. Today.
Right.
I am
Right.
not considering going under anesthesia so I can get some painkillers to get a procedure.
Boom, boom. Because that's the other thing. And because so you have that lived experience, and I spent a lot of my career working in inpatient drug and alcohol treatment. So I also have a very good understanding. I've seen people, sick and under the influence of that addictive thinking. And then you see them when they cross over into recovery. And there is something about people who are truly working one day at a time to save their own lives. And the one thing I'll say is there is one cornerstone that you'll see among people who are really doing the work, and that is humility. Humility to me is one of those things that it's like if someone comes out of treatment and they're still having so much hubris about, this or that, or if they haven't let all of that go and surrendered, to me, that's still addictive thinking. That's still alcoholic thinking. There's still so much illness that I see in that lack of humility, if that makes sense.
Well, and you think of Jax as another example of just, we're just going for people on our television, guys, not people we actually know. But if we look at Jax as an example of somebody with no humility, right? Just
Right.
never would accept he had a problem. Now, we don't know with what he's been doing now if maybe we will actually see some growth in him.
Mm,
It would be shocking because we're so used to seeing no growth, but maybe, we'll see. But with Karen, she flip-flopped so much during this interview to say, no, she's not an alcoholic, and then later said alcoholism. So
right.
which one is it? And then she said, like, she corrected Andy when he said, you drove drunk 4 times. She's like, oh, let me correct you. Only 2 of those were DUIs. 2 of the other
Mm.
ones were alcohol-related incidents.
And
Okay,
that
that's parsing, like, I'm just, again, my own experience with my husband and other addicts in my life would never say, well, I did that, but I didn't do that, because they quickly know how to replace the language and go, but it's not about what I did compared to this or that. It's about taking accountability for what I did.
right, right. The language that Karen used throughout this interview, she was speaking out of both sides of her mouth, which
Yes.
that told me that she has not changed. This has not sunk in for her. Now, in fairness, we have both seen that to get into recovery, it's a long, lengthy process, right? Not only do you have the detox and the withdrawal period when you first stop using, you have what's
Mhm.
called post-acute withdrawal syndrome, pause for short, that can last for years, right?
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
I say this because I do hope that Karen can get there, but the language is incongruent with her actions. She is still trying to make excuses for her behaviors. Correcting Andy was so bold and just so stupid, because someone who's really in recovery, part of being in recovery, especially if you're working a 12-step program, a lot of it is looking at our character defects and owning and saying, yes, making amends for these are the decisions that I made.
Mhm.
Someone who is truly owning something, accountable, and making amends through their behaviors is not going to quabble over a couple of words that Andy said. There is
Mhm.
still so much narcissism in that. There's still entitlement. There's still a willfulness that you can't have that willfulness and be sober, because the whole thing with sobriety is
Yes.
surrendering that, right, there is something greater than ourselves. And Karen has most certainly, her language has told me, she has not surrendered. If anything, what actually made me angry, and I cannot wait to watch the reunion, is that Karen somehow slips into this reunion, even though she was in jail for the entire season. And I watch her reading Wendy, and it's like, listen, honey, you need to sit down, take some accountability of your life before you try reading anybody. You need to look at your own self. And that's just
Mhm.
how I know she's full of it. She is full of it. And
Yeah,
I
and
don't
that's
like it.
I I I didn't like how she quabbled over if she was in NA or AA, and how she was addicted to pills, not alcohol. Alcohol was not calling to her, and Andy goes, "It was definitely called to you the night you got the DUI," and she was like, "It wasn't calling to me that night." It doesn't
Yeah.
matter if it was calling to you, you got a DUI, you were like 4 times over the legal limit. We saw the video, right?
Right. It's so common, though, to see people have more comfort with using A over B. Like, I would see that all the time in inpatient treatment. They're
Yes.
comfortable with, I use alcohol, but I'm not comfortable with saying I use methamphetamines, right? That part is human. But what angered me to no extent, that I will happily talk about right now, is that she weaponized antidepressants as the cause for her behavior. And
Mhm.
so let me, because this is something I talked about on my podcast, and a lot of people felt they appreciated it. I believe Karen is using the broad term antidepressant to mask some things that she was really doing.
She would not
And
say what it was because the pharmaceutical company is gonna sue her?
well, here's why.
What?
Because if she's making claims that an antidepressant led to drunk driving, she will get sued, because that is patently false.
Right.
Antidepressants. Now, there are different levels of antidepressants. I'm not going to go all dorky science here, but there's SSRIs, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, and then SNRIs, selective neuroepinephrine reuptake inhibitors. Those medications like Paxil, Lexapro, Prozac, things like that, those don't cause drunk driving. Those are life saving for people who struggle with depression. And I'm going to be honest, myself included. I'm a Lexapro gal here.
Well, I have a question. I take
Yes.
Effexor. Which one is that? Which category is Effexor in?
Oh, that's a good.
Venlafaxine. I always am like, venlafaxine is it's venlafaxine. Venlafaxine.
I know all those names are really, really hard to say. I've actually taken Effexor too, and I didn't have good luck on that.
I've taken it
Um,
for, surprise, 11 years. That's about
Well, listen, if it works for you, that's great. Okay, so Effexor is an SNRI.
Okay.
So Lexapro is an SSRI,
Okay.
and an SNRI didn't work for me. So an SNRI did work for you, and that's
Yeah.
what Effexor is.
Okay.
Now, what I believe that Karen may have been talking about is something like Xanax or
Uh-huh.
Ativan, which
Uh-huh.
Xanax is a benzodiazepine.
Benzos.
Now, correct.
Yeah.
So benzodiazepines, for those who don't know, are highly addictive. And when you mix a benzodiazepine with alcohol, that honestly can be deadly, and I will tell you why. Is a benzodiazepine, it's going to decrease your heart rate, your respiratory rate. It's kind of like a nervous system. It calms your nervous system, right?
Yeah.
It's not an antidepressant, but it can be helpful in when used clinically appropriately, for short term, for panic and anxiety disorders and things like that. Yes.
Okay, Xanax, I talk about it all the time. The joke in our house is half a Xanax, because if I ever have to fly, and not as much as I used to because I fly so
Mhm.
much now, but used to anytime I had to fly, I would be like, "I have to take a half a Xanax." And that's like the kids make a joke like, "Oh, mom's gonna take a half a Xanax." I go, "I really wish y'all wouldn't make that joke because it does make me sound like I have a problem." I get a Xanax prescription that'll last me like 2 years,
Yeah.
because if I ever have anxiety, and it used to be every year. I'll give you another example. We had a Christmas party every year. It's the maximum 25 to 30 people, not a big party. But for some reason, I would get so
Mhm.
sweaty, like I'm just right now, like my mouth would get dry. I'd be sweaty. I'd be so freaking I could feel just my heart going out of my chest. Like, why? And
Right.
I would, at Christmas, take the half the Xanax. I wouldn't have a drink at the party because I know you're not supposed to. But
Mhm.
I would say, I'm going to take half a Xanax. And so at my wedding, I was about to walk down the aisle and had a Carrie Bradshaw get this dress off of me moment, had to take the whole thing off.
Oh.
And it's not because I didn't want to get I hate the idea, and this is again counterintuitive to what I do for my job. I hate the idea of people looking at me,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
And
Yeah.
that's why I hate that now we're all on video, whatever. But that's a whole nother thing. But I hate the idea of everybody looking at me. And my mom, I've told the story a million times. My mom pulled out like an old lady pill bottle out of her bag, which had like Tums,
Yeah.
Advil, Xanax.
I love that.
I don't know what else she had in there. She poured it out on the couch, like Xanax covered in Rolaids, right?
Oh my
And
god.
my friend, who's a PharmD, a doctorate of pharmacy, looked at all of
Mhm.
them and she knew what they were. She got the Xanax, gave me like a quarter of whatever it was. And she
Yeah.
talks about that 25 years. My friend still talks about it this day. She was like, "I've never seen anything like that. Your mom." And I was like, "My mom had probably had that one Xanax for 10 years,
For 20 years.
waiting for somebody to need it. And it's
I
covered
love
in like
that.
Tums and Rolade dust. And
Yeah,
you just wiped it
yeah.
off and gave it to me. And 20 minutes later, I was okay."
Right. Well, listen, let me be super clear
So
because
it does work if you need it.
I have complex PTSD and I do have a lot of struggles with panic and anxiety due to medical trauma. And so Xanax, I use little bits in like intermittently. And so not here to say that Xanax is bad or you shouldn't ever use it. But what I think happened with Karen is she's claimed that she got the prescription, right? And then, she's mixing it with alcohol, and then,
But she wasn't really saying that, Melissa. She
well,
wasn't
this
really
is
saying she's mixing with alcohol, which obviously is what it was.
well, clearly, but I guess what I'm saying to you and to everyone listening is there's a way to use Xanax short term acutely for exactly what it is that you said. If
Yeah.
your nervous system is jacked up and you literally are having panic and anxiety, it can help calm your nervous system down. Beta blockers are good for that too. But what
Okay.
happens is sometimes people get them prescribed and they don't know that they shouldn't take them every day because what will
Uh-huh.
happen with a benzodiazepine like that is you need more and more and more to get the same effect. And so I've had some people had to come into treatment because let's say a PCP prescribed it, they were taking it every day and it lost effectiveness and then their body became physiologically dependent
And then they
upon it.
needed more. And they need
Correct.
more. Yeah. Okay.
Correct. So what you're talking about is the appropriate way to use it. I use it appropriately too. If I'm having a panic attack or, a moment where my nervous system is jacked up, I will take a very small dose of it temporarily. That's what it's used for. But Karen is just weaponizing. She's trying to use semantics, which bothers me. And that's also how I can tell that she's not really doing the work. She's doing semantics to kind of pick and choose her accountability.
Mhm.
And it's just not it's just not flying. So, but to be clear, that's why she couldn't make the statement because she would have gotten sued for making false claims about antidepressants. Now, if she
Why couldn't she just say, I don't want to say specifically, but it was a benzo. I don't want to say specifically, but it was an SSRI. I don't know why she wouldn't say that, because it just leads us to be like, it could have been this, it could have been that, it could have been this, it could have been heroin. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, why wouldn't she say?
well, I think because she's the word that I'll use is she's obfuscating. Like, it's one of my favorite new words, which is like she's just trying to hide her stuff from people.
Is it pain pills? Like, did she have a back surgery? And that we see this all the time. Why wouldn't she say, I got addicted? She doesn't have to say oxycodone. She could say pain pills. She doesn't have to say Xanax. She could say a benzo.
Right, because she's full of it, that's why. Because she's
Okay.
full of
All
it
right.
and she
Here we go.
wants to blame she wants anyone other than Karen Huger to be at fault for why she does what she does. But let me be really clear about
Gotcha.
something.
Okay.
Karen Huger had an alcohol addiction 20 years ago,
Mhm.
right? Here's the thing about people. They will always tell on themselves if you know what to listen for. She said 20 years ago, Raven and her son Brandon and Ray were so concerned that she was an alcoholic. And she even admitted that the rumors that Ashley shared at the reunion were true, that she would go to
Yes.
legal seafood, that she would day drink,
Yes.
and Ray would have to pick her up. Okay,
Wow.
here's the
Uh-huh.
thing.
Wow.
If alcoholism was your problem 20 years ago,
Uh-huh.
alcoholism doesn't surprisingly remit or go into remission or go away without blood, sweat, and tears. It doesn't. And
Right.
so Karen told on herself in that moment, because I was listening, if alcoholism was an issue for you 20 years ago, it's certainly an issue for you now. You're just not comfortable noting that. You want it to be due to something a doctor gave you. And I'll tie this up in a nice little bow. And the reason why is if a doctor gave it to her, then Karen Huger isn't responsible.
Mm.
If it's drinking and if it's alcoholism, she's the only one responsible to blame. And
Because
in
it
fact,
called to her.
well, she even said this in the interview. She did say to Andy, she said, I'm not as comfortable talking about alcohol because that's my decision. But a doctor prescribing me this is more comfortable. And this is why, because it
Wow.
gives her someone to blame shift on. She can blame shift on the word antidepressant because there's enough people who aren't educated to say, oh, well, maybe that is a thing. I'm here to tell you it's not. I've been on antidepressants for, I don't know, decades, and I've never I never drove drunk one time.
I know probably, I'd say 80% of people in my life are on some kind of something.
Mhm.
And I don't, they don't, I mean, the majority of them don't go around drinking and driving, you know?
Sure. And then, listen, there are comorbid, it's called dual diagnosis where people, and I would argue most folks in addiction have some underlying mental health stuff, right? Whether it's
Of
depression,
course.
anxiety,
And
right?
that's why,
There is
sometimes
a
that's why it
reason.
starts, right? You're trying to,
Right.
yeah,
You're trying to self-medicate because being human is hard. And are when you're experiencing these things and you don't have a good treatment plan, people can not tolerate that and then they self-medicate. So what dual diagnosis says is that we have to focus on the mental health stuff that led to all that or
yes.
underlying it, and we have to focus on the addictive part, the drinking, the drugs, whatever it is. So Karen is just trying, she's doing half steps. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with this term, but I talk about the term a 13th stepper,
Uh-huh.
which is
No, I don't know.
okay. So a 13th stepper is someone who they come into the program, they have not worked on themselves one iota, but they're trying to be sponsors and mentor people and talk and give this grand explanation of how great they are, but really it's just all BS. And that's Karen. She is using young women to mentor as a way to go around her own healing, because helping others feels
Crazy.
good.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, helping people appears altruistic, but Karen's not really helping people because she wants to help. She was helping because it lessened her prison sentence. Like, she wasn't asked to run these meetings, it was a part of her conditions to be released early. So
Yeah.
it's like, Judge Judy had this saying, like, don't pee on my leg and tell me it's raining. Like, Karen
Yeah.
is peeing on our leg and being like, I'm sober. And it's like, but you're not doing it, girl. You're just not.
It was wild when she was like, because she had been in like a treatment program. So let's just say she gets the sentence, or before she gets the sentence, she goes into a treatment program. She gets a nose job. She goes to prison. Like all these things happened at the same time. And then she goes in there and was like, and now I'm the leader of the group. You've been
Right.
sober 45 days and now you're leading meetings? Like, there's
Right.
probably people, young women in that prison who have a lot more sober time than she does and probably been
I
through a lot more programs than she has.
I guarantee it. And can I also give a little bit of tea in terms of like it's not tea, but the reason I think she prefers NA. Okay.
Mhm.
So there's different like in the 12-step programs, NA is Narcotics Anonymous and AA is Alcoholics Anonymous,
Right.
okay?
Uh-huh.
But people who are sober and in recovery know that a drug is a drug is a drug. Okay?
Right.
That's period. But what Karen's trying to do is delineate because of her own discomfort with what she was doing. But the reason I believe she prefers NA is because typically, depending on geographically where you live, NA tends to be younger folks who are more suggestible, who
Uh-huh.
are more in need of maybe some mentoring. And I think Karen feels like a mama hen among younger folks. In AA, you have a lot of people who, not that there are young people in AA, but they're also like, well, they call them like old heads,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
right? Where they're old timer people who have been sober 30, 40 years in AA. And the reason why I think she doesn't like that is not only she's just uncomfortable with her alcohol use, she also doesn't want people who know more than her trying to tell her
To call her
things
out.
she needs to hear.
Uh-huh. Right.
Yeah, younger people aren't going to do that. But if you meet an old timer in AA, he's going to spot your shit immediately,
Immediately.
going to call you out on it, and you're not going to like that. So that's also why I think that
My
is.
husband used to go to a meeting around here and everybody was real old. And he
Mm,
loved the phrase that whoever has the most sobriety, like this person's got 30 years, this person's got 22 years, at that time he had 1, 2 years. He said the person who had the most sobriety was whoever woke up earliest that day.
oh,
And he was like, so,
yeah.
because he was like,
Yeah.
because the day's not over. You
That's
don't know what
exactly
5
right.
o'clock's going to bring. Doesn't matter if you're 30 years sober. We're doing it today, you know?
Right, right,
And it's so all the AA talk, and my brother-in-law is sober too, and my sister is, 12 years in Al-Anon, and they just
right.
do a lot in their community. So I get a lot of the phrasing, even more so from them from my husband. But
Sure.
every so often, my husband will bring out a saying about like stay in your hula hoop or whatever. We're all like, we don't know what you're talking about, but it is that it is. If you go to one of those meetings and somebody has been in there 35 years sober and they see somebody coming in like, well, my wife is so mean and I had to drink because she's such a bitch and she's making me come here, they will not
Right.
tolerate that. They'll be like, you're in the wrong place. Yeah.
Right, and the reason for that is because when it comes to the disease of addiction, which is deadly and it wants to kill you, there is no room for going back to the term fucking around and finding out. There's no room for that. Like Carl Radke on Summer House, when you lose someone to addiction, when you understand this disease wants to kill you, the whole thing that gets people sober and keeps them sober is rigorous honesty and
Yeah.
full and complete accountability. And what happens in the program is they give, it's called different things, but giving a responsible concern is part of what your job is to help other people see their blind spots, right?
Mhm, mhm.
Healing is not for the faint of heart and it's not for people who have weak egos. To really heal, you have to own your character defects, you have to be rigorously honest, and that means you have to do that with yourself and you have to do that with other people. And when other people cannot hear that, that is a huge red flag for they're not ready. They just aren't ready.
Speaking of Carl Radke, because I'm not a summer house person. I know everybody, well, I don't want to hear about it. Okay. I don't watch it. I don't care. So don't come
Okay.
at me. So, but I do know the players. I don't know the game. So I know Carl. I know who he is. I know he's sober, whatever. Didn't you think it was interesting? Because you were just talking about if you're an alcoholic 20 years ago, you're still an alcoholic today. Didn't you think it
Mhm.
was interesting that Chrissy Teigen posted with Carl Radke saying he was like a mentor to her? Chrissy Teigen posted, she's married to a guy who's almost got an EGOT or does have an EGOT.
Right.
And she herself is, very well known and famous and written many cookbooks and all this. That Carl Radke showed her that because she had stopped drinking maybe 5 years ago, but decided somewhere along the lines, it's okay, I can have a glass of wine with my friends. And then that became like, is it 5 o'clock? And then that became, who cares? It's lunch. And then, and I'm not doing anything. And then, and she says,
Mhm.
and then you slip back into it, which
Right.
is, I think, exactly what happened to Karen. She probably didn't drink heavily for a long time and then was like, well, I'm on this show, so it's fine. And then slowly as little, you see the people several seasons ago calling her out, like, she called me and she has no idea what she said. And she's like,
Right.
what do you think?
Mhm.
And then for them to be like, no, she's been drinking like this for years and years and years. And this is not her first DUI. It's her fourth. It's her fourth alcohol related arrest, Andy. You
Mhm.
know, well, Pat and Dylan said last week, they think the reason she was, and again, they had not seen the whole thing, but they thought the reason she was so adamant to not say alcoholic and that alcohol calls to her or it doesn't, but it was the pills that were the problem. They felt it was because she wanted to be able to drink on camera again without being judged.
I mean, listen, I think
I don't.
b
I don't think
every
she would ever do that, but we thought that about Luann too, you know?
well, that's right, and I think there's value to that perspective is that she's not she doesn't isn't ready for her life to be as different as it needs to be
Right.
sober. So
Mhm.
I do think there's something to that. I really do. And I get she doesn't want to be judged, but like it's not about judgment. It's just about like being honest because we want Karen to survive and we want other people to survive because it is a public safety issue to be drinking and driving. But I mean, that is an interesting theory. I just think like denial and minimization, when it comes to addiction, there are what's called the motivational stages of change. And motivation to change, it's not linear, it's cyclical, meaning you can be sober like Chrissy Teigen for how many years, and then you can just denial and minimization creeps in, right? And they call that the sleeping tiger in the recovery space, is that if you sleep on your disease, it's going to come back and it's going to
Yeah.
get you. And
Mhm.
the only thing that prevents that is rigorous honesty from yourself and from other people, because blind spots can't exist when you have people around you giving you feedback about your behaviors. But Karen
Yeah.
doesn't want that. And so why doesn't she want that? I think it's a million reasons. It's denial, it's minimization. She's not ready for her life to be different. She doesn't want to own her stuff. She wants it to be someone else's fault. But most importantly, I do think she wants to be back to being the grand dame. She wants to pretend this all never happened and go back to being on TV. And again, that's a red flag to me, considering like your priority should be you and your husband. Because the one thing that we found out from that interview is that Karen has been miserable with Ray.
Yeah.
Miserable. She called Mary Payne, she called her home a tomb. Do you understand? She called her home a tomb.
And then she was like, and Ray and I have decided, if after this is all over that, like, I don't want to be with him, like, he's okay with it. I'm like, go ahead and do it. Why are you prolonging this? Just go ahead and live in separate parts of the house if you can't afford to have two different homes. Like, I listen, speaking of addiction, because I know I don't have you for hours and hours because we could discuss this for hours and hours.
Yes.
Speaking of addiction, I do want to talk to you about Southern Charm.
Mm.
Because what I find very interesting is the Craig of it all
Mm.
also fully saying to Austen, you don't understand what it's like to have an addict brain. Like, I can't just have one drink. Now, meanwhile, while he was saying this 2 seasons ago or last season, he's sitting with a bottle of Dom Perignon next to him, open, a bottle,
Literally.
not a glass, just a
Literally.
bottle, just from the bottle. But he's saying,
Yeah.
you don't understand what it's like to be an addict. I can't go out all the time and have drinks because I'm an addict. I don't know when to stop. Excuse me, chug. So anyway, it was crazy, right? Where he
Yes,
explained
yes.
he can't go out like that anymore because of he has an addictive personality. This
Mhm.
season, like somebody pointed out, Austen was mad at him last season because he wasn't fun and didn't go out, and Austen is mad at him this season because he is fun and going out. So But I think what Austen is saying is, man, you sat with me on the beach and gave me a heartfelt explanation that you're an addict. And now this season, you're sloppy drunk all the time. And I'm not supposed to say anything as a friend. I'm not supposed to like, hey, man, are you okay? Like, what are you
Mhm.
doing? So what is your thought on that with Craig?
Yeah, okay, so my thought on that is that Austen is 1,000% correct because he realized that Craig was manipulating him.
Yes.
Because when you excuse me, when you cut someone off at the knees with a conversation
Mhm.
and, sorry, the sunlight just, like, poked through, and I'm like,
That
all
is
of a
so
sudden, I'm dark.
no, you guys were I'm watching on video and all of a sudden I'm like, wow, did an eclipse just happen outside of your
I
window?
literally, I podcast in the front of my house, and we have this huge picture window, so for anyone watching the video, it just, like, will get dark and I don't know, it's wacky. Anyway, sorry for
It's
that
really pretty
interruption.
though, because it makes those flowers behind you look like they're kind of
Yeah,
blooming.
it looks
Yeah,
beautiful.
yeah,
Yes,
it does.
and
Yeah.
I'm just like, "Okay." So, I think that Austen was completely right because one thing that I said at the beginning of the season, I was like, "Wait a second. If Craig was saying last season that he was an addict and an alcoholic and now he's just drinking, then that means he's relapsed, and people need to be way more concerned."
Yeah.
That was what my brain said,
And
and
he's
so
very sweaty. He's
oh
very
my
sweaty.
gosh. So lots of physiological expressions of whatever it is that he's doing, which
I
is a
agree.
concern.
Uh-huh.
But I think that going back to what I was saying, Austin realized that Craig used that to manipulate him so that Craig could win the argument and Austin didn't have a leg to stand
Right.
on.
What are you gonna say
And
when
now
somebody says, "I'm an addict, I can't," and
right.
then the conversation's over. You have to be like,
And then
"Hey,
it's over.
let me support you." Yeah.
Right. He weaponized his stuff to manipulate. And this season, Austin had every right to say, wait a second. All of a sudden, now you're not an addict anymore. You're just drinking. And what am I supposed to believe? Number one. Number two, I now realize that you use that because Craig cannot. The reason why Austin and Craig have what Whitney called a circle jerk of acrimony, which I felt was like a really interesting choice of words for Whitney.
Whitney's a poet. Come on now. Circle jerk
I
of
mean,
acrimony. That's beautiful.
I was like, that is one of the most hilariously, beautifully descriptive things that I've ever heard in my entire life.
That's good.
But the reason they have that is because they cannot resolve any conflict because Craig is always like, wanting to exit the conflict where he looks good, but there's nothing that's really resolved. And
Mhm.
Austin, now listen, Austin is fully a part of this, right? He plays his own role. He can be provocative to Craig and all these other things. He has his own stuff. But I think in this instance, he has every right to be concerned. And I think the fans should be more concerned if someone is saying they were sober and now they're drunk every night. That's a concern for me because that's what we call a relapse.
Yes. It's a relapse.
So
And even like Shep, who has had his own problems, God knows I personally have been felt up by Shep at a BravoCon, just hand on the boob.
oh,
Just
really?
he's just real sloppy. However,
Wait, hold on, Mary
yes.
Payne.
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Oh,
He
yeah.
grabbed your boob.
Not on purpose, but he's very tall, and he draped
Oh.
his arm around me, and I was like, "Okay." Yeah.
Okay, well, I still don't love that, but anyway, please continue.
I'll send you some photo evidence. So,
Please, I would love that.
he's very drunk.
Let's yeah, no,
Very
that's
drunk,
so
very,
gross.
very gross and drunk, right? And he's been
Gross.
very, very gross and drunk. And he's done it at BravoCon 4 years in a row. He did it this year too. So even though when he got in trouble for it 2 years ago, he was like, "Now I'm just drinking beer." Now, as you know,
Mm.
addicts do this. They try to say, "Okay,
Yep.
I'm only gonna drink on the weekends. I'm
Mhm.
only gonna drink beer. I only drink after 5." My husband's thing used to be like, "I'm gonna stop drinking at 10." So at
Mm.
9:55, he would pour himself a drink this big. But you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
you make it
Right.
so that's what we've seen Shep do. Shep has
Yes.
never said, "I'm an alcoholic. I have a drinking problem. I need help." He has said, "I'm trying to better myself and get my drinking under control." Smart, because he can still drink
Mhm.
if he wants. Craig has said, "I'm an addict. I am an addict. He said those
Mhm.
words.
He
So
did.
what does he think is going to happen when he's drinking on camera? Same as Luann, right? What do you think is going to happen? People are
Right.
going to fucking call you out for it.
Right. But the thing is that Craig, the one thing that he's really bad at is being impeccable with his word. Like Craig does not know how to be truthful, I really truly believe.
Yeah,
And,
it's been proven time and time again. Yes.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So he is not impeccable with his word, meaning like he just throws whatever out there and then he gets angry that people hold him accountable for the words that he says because that's the world he lives in. That whatever he wants to say is loosey goosey, that whatever he feels in the moment, he's very much like Kyle Cook from Summer House, which I know you don't watch and I'm not going to judge you for that. But there's this term in recovery which I talk a lot about in my podcast, which is called king baby. I don't know if you've ever heard that term, Mary Payne, king baby. So a king baby is someone who is um, struggling with addiction and they believe that world should bend to their will and everything should go their way and it's all about them. And Craig and Kyle Cook to me are king babies in that, like, just because you have big feelings doesn't mean that gives you the right to hurt other people or wound other people or take it out on other people. Like, they are responsible for how they feel. It's not Amanda Batula's fault, Kyle's wife. It's not Austen's fault. It's Craig. It's him. He needs to focus on that.
This is like
And
This is a lot like Jack's too. Everything is everybody else's fault, right?
that's exactly right. And with Craig, I think he was using Paige and he uses his other girlfriends to keep him sober and to keep him in check. And then
Mm.
as soon as that check system goes away, then he's unhinged and he doesn't want to be accountable for that. Well, that's up to him, right? Like he can't, he used Paige, I think, as like bowling bumper guards.
Mhm.
So he
Mhm.
didn't keep throwing it in the gutter.
But didn't
And
he act so terrible at Kyle and Amanda's wedding, he got kicked out?
he did. Yes,
Yeah.
he absolutely did. So I'm grateful for her that she kind of figured out
Yeah,
I don't think she wanted to be his bumper guards anymore.
right.
We don't want to have to teach our partners like how to be an adult. That's not that's not a sexy thing.
No.
That's not a fun thing. That's
Mm-mm.
not something that we're like, yes, let's do it. I want to teach my partner how to be a man. No,
No. Uh-uh.
just be one.
No, just you can't fix anybody, you guys, like, that's the lesson, like, the people are who they are. My husband is the same
That's right.
person that he was when I met him when I was in my 20s. He's the same guy. He's sober now, but he's the same guy. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
I
Yes.
can't fix him, he had to fix himself.
That's
So,
right.
but God knows I really gave it a good try. Gave it a good try.
Well, Mary Payne, they say that addiction is a family disease. And when we grow up, I grew up with addiction in my family. We are sometimes bred to be, sorry.
That's okay. You got something in your throat.
Yeah. And I don't have water. We are sometimes bred to be, depending on how we grew up, to be codependent.
Mhm.
Listen, I loved to pick terrible men and try to convince them to be better for me. That was exclusively, in fact, what I used to do.
Yeah.
So there's no shame in that game. And that's why, listen, that's why I love Al-Anon, because I think, Al-Anon, for folks who don't know, is for people who love someone with an addiction, that they
Yeah.
don't have an addiction, because truly you do, when you're with someone, you have to learn how to not make them your emotional thermostat,
Right.
because it's so easy to have
Yep.
that happen. And so everyone has work to do. So congratulations to you all for doing the work.
And congratulations to Paige for realizing, like, this is not my life. I don't wanna do this with this man.
That's right.
But
That's
it
right.
is, God, we could literally do a 12-hour series on addicts on Bravo.
Yes, we
Um,
could.
we
And
didn't
maybe
get to
we
talk
should.
maybe we should
Maybe we should.
we didn't get to talk about Beverly Hills, speaking of addicts, but that's okay. Because, as the Super Bowl messed up my TLC schedule, it also messed up our Bravo
Right.
schedule, and the
Yes.
Olympics is also putting a cramp in our Bravo. But
Right.
luckily, we had enough to talk about with Craig, Karen, and who else did we start with? Jill Zarin.
Jill Zarin. Jill
Yes.
Zarin. Yeah.
God bless Jill Zarin. Come on, lady.
Ugh.
Anyway, we didn't solve Nancy Guthrie either. We're recording this on Wednesday. I've been on the case for 11 days. I'm actively trying to solve it. I told you I didn't want to go to bed last night for fear it would get solved while I was asleep. But I woke up on a Wednesday. It wasn't solved. Maybe Thursday's our day, everybody.
Let's
Listen
hope.
to
Bring Nancy home.
Nancy
Bring
home,
her
guys.
home. Oh,
Everybody
my
be
God.
listening. Our friend Kate Casey has been having an FBI guy on, been talking about,
Nice.
he now does private security, and he's talking a lot about in his time working with kidnappers and stuff with the FBI. So that's been very interesting. Of course, you can always listen to Emily D. Baker. And then you could also just scroll through Instagram. Brian Entin, Entin. He's a guy that's on the scene. These are places you can follow Nancy Guthrie if you're also trying to solve it like we are. Please, Lord, by Thursday, let there be an answer.
Honestly, I mean, these poor people are just, and listen, we don't have time for this, but there's a whole psychology to the kidnappers and why they do what they do and some of the psychological profiles.
Okay, once it is solved, and the Netflix documentaries in the works, once it is solved, and they get who it is and they figure out why and if she's alive and if not, and when all that kind of starts to come out, come back so we can discuss that.
1,000%. Yes.
Okay,
I
and
would
I'm going to be on your
absolutely love
show.
to.
I'm going to be on your show next. It's going to air next week.
Yep. We'll air next Tuesday. Yep.
Okay, great.
So check out Your Bish Therapist. Podcast is free and available everywhere. I will have Mary Payne back on my pod, which will air on Tuesday. And I'm very excited and hope maybe by then we'll have more information and we can talk a little bit more about it. So very excited. Yeah, very excited.
Everybody follow Melissa. She has great insights. You can follow her on Instagram at Your Bish Therapist. Your Bish Therapist, Bish instead of bitch. Your Bish Therapist. And please follow me at Pink Shade Pod. Okay. Bye.
Bye.